Los Angeles, the city of dreams. But beneath the towering skyscrapers and glittering streets lies a different reality. Thousands sleep in tents, on sidewalks, or in alleyways, forgotten by a system designed to ignore them. Hunger gnaws at their bodies. Desperation fills their eyes. Some turn to drugs, an escape, a numbing relief from a life without hope. Shelters meant to protect them fail. Addiction traps them, and society looks away. This isn't just a crisis, it's a deliberate tragedy. If no one speaks for them, who will? Globe Path Travel Documentary, unveiling the truth the world ignores. Los Angeles, the city of dreams, of wealth, of promises. But beneath the bright lights and towering skyscrapers, another reality festers in the shadows. Every night, over 73,500 people sleep on sidewalks, in alleys, and under freeway bridges, stripped of dignity, forgotten by a society that refuses to see them. Their homes are made of tents and cardboard, their meals uncertain, their survival a daily battle. Some fight hunger, others fight addiction. Fentanyl overdoses have surged, turning the streets into graveyards of lost souls. A young man crouches in the darkness, injecting a dose that might be his last. A mother, once thriving, now wanders Skid Row, whispering a name. A child lost to the street's shelters, meant to protect, have become breeding grounds for neglect and abuse. Government funding vanishes into bureaucratic black holes, while laws criminalize the very existence of the homeless. Billions have been spent, yet the crisis worsens. This isn't just failure, it's intentional glob. Epath Travel Documentary exposes the truth behind this catastrophe. Stories that demand to be heard, realities that can no longer be ignored. The question is, will you look away, or will you finally see? Life on the streets, a reality. No one sees Los Angeles, once known as the city of dreams, has become a city of despair for thousands. The streets tell a different story, one of hunger, addiction, and systemic failure. In 2025, the homeless population in Los Angeles County remains staggering, with approximately 73,500 people living without shelter. Despite billions of dollars allocated to address the crisis, the situation continues to deteriorate. Encampments stretch across sidewalks, under freeway overpasses, and in abandoned lots. Skid Row remains one of the most concentrated homeless areas in the country, where makeshift tents and cardboard shelters serve as homes for those who have been forgotten. The city periodically clears these encampments, forcing people to relocate, but never offering real solutions. Food insecurity is rampant. Many rely on soup kitchens and food banks, but supplies are limited. Some go days without eating, surviving on scraps found in dumpsters. Others trade what little they have for cigarettes or temporary warmth. The desperation is palpable, and the cycle of poverty tightens its grip with each passing day. Jobs are nearly impossible to secure for those living on the streets. Employers hesitate to hire someone without an address, without clean clothes, without stability. Even those who once had careers find themselves trapped in a system that offers no way out. The longer they remain homeless, the harder it becomes to reintegrate into society. Addiction has become a silent epidemic among the homeless population. Fentanyl overdoses have surged, turning the streets into graveyards of lost souls. A young man crouches in the darkness, injecting a dose that might be his last. A mother, once thriving, now wanders Skid Row, whispering the name of a child lost to the streets. Dealers lurk in the shadows, preying on the vulnerable, feeding the cycle of addiction that grips the city. Shelters, meant to provide refuge, have become places of neglect and abuse. Reports of violence, overcrowding, and unsanitary conditions have surfaced, revealing the failures of a system that claims to help. Many homeless individuals avoid shelters altogether, preferring the dangers of the streets over the horrors they have experienced inside. Despite billions in spending, the crisis persists. California has spent $24 billion on homelessness over the past 5 years, yet the problem continues to grow. A federal investigation is underway to track $2 billion in missing homelessness funds, raising questions about corruption and mismanagement. In 2024, Los Angeles failed to spend $513 million allocated for homelessness programs, further highlighting the inefficiency of government intervention. The City Council has approved a public database to track homelessness-related expenditures, but for those living on the streets, this means little. Their reality remains unchanged. They continue to suffer, to struggle, to be ignored. This isn't just a crisis, it's a catastrophe hiding in plain sight. The question remains, will society continue to look away, or will it finally acknowledge the suffering that has been allowed to persist for far too long? The trap of addiction, numbing the pain. Los Angeles, once a beacon of opportunity, now harbors a crisis that few dare to confront. Addiction has consumed the streets, turning alleyways into graveyards of lost souls. The epidemic has reached staggering proportions. Methamphetamine and fentanyl have become the drugs of choice, their grip tightening around the most vulnerable. A man sits against a graffiti-covered wall, his hands trembling as he prepares a needle. His body is frail, his skin marked by the scars of repeated injections. He exhales sharply as the heroin floods his veins, his eyes rolling back in temporary relief. But this relief is fleeting. Soon, the agony will return, and the cycle will begin again. Nearby, a woman stares blankly at the ground, her lips cracked, her body weak. She was once a mother, once a daughter, once someone with dreams. Now, she is a prisoner of addiction, wandering the streets in search of her next fix. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispers, her voice barely audible. Dealers lurk in the shadows, preying on desperation. They sell poison disguised as salvation, knowing their customers have no other escape. Fentanyl, a synthetic opioid, has become the leading cause of overdose deaths in Los Angeles. Even the smallest dose can be fatal, yet it is mixed into heroin, counterfeit prescription pills, and other substances, creating a deadly cocktail. Hospitals are overwhelmed with opioid-related emergencies. Emergency rooms see a constant influx of overdose victims, many of whom never make it out alive. The financial burden on public health systems is immense. With addiction treatment costs skyrocketing, shelters, meant to provide refuge, have become places of neglect and abuse. Reports of violence, overcrowding, and unsanitary conditions have surfaced, revealing the failures of a system that claims to help. Many homeless individuals avoid shelters altogether, preferring the dangers of the streets over the horrors they have experienced inside rehabilitation programs preach salvation. But the reality is far from hopeful. Most who enter these programs leave unchanged, the cycle of addiction gripping tighter. The relapse rates are staggering, and the resources are insufficient to address the scale of the crisis. Los Angeles has become a city of contrasts. Wealth and poverty, hope and despair, life and death. The addiction epidemic is not just a personal tragedy, it is a societal failure. The question remains, will society continue to look away, or will it finally confront the suffering that has been allowed to persist for far too long? This is the reality of addiction in Los Angeles, a trap that numbs the pain but destroys everything else. The streets are filled with people who were once thriving, business owners, parents, students. Now, they trade their bodies, their dignity, for the next fix. The addiction grips tighter with each passing day, pulling them further into the abyss. Methamphetamine use has surged, with reports indicating that meth-related deaths have increased dramatically over the past decade. In 2023, 64% of meth-related deaths involved synthetic opioids like fentanyl. The combination of these substances has created a lethal epidemic, one that continues to claim lives at an alarming rate. Despite efforts to combat the crisis, the numbers tell a different story. The opioid epidemic has placed an enormous burden on Los Angeles's healthcare infrastructure, with hospitals and emergency services inundated with addiction-related emergencies. The financial strain is immense, as the costs of treating overdoses, addiction-related illnesses, and mental health crises continue to rise. The crisis has also led to an increase in crime rates, particularly in drug-related offenses and property crimes. Lower-income neighborhoods face higher incidences of drug-related criminal activity, further destabilizing these communities. This isn't just a crisis, it's a catastrophe hiding in plain sight. The question remains, will society continue to look away, or will it finally acknowledge the suffering that has been allowed to persist for far too long? Society's blind spot, the system that fails them. Los Angeles, a city of wealth and opportunity, has also become a city of systemic neglect. The homeless crisis is not just a result of misfortune. It is a failure designed by policies that punish survival rather than provide solutions. Laws criminalize the very act of existing without a home. Sleeping in public spaces is illegal. Loitering is met with fines that the homeless cannot pay. Asking for help is treated as a nuisance rather than a cry for survival. Encampments, the last refuge for those with nowhere else to go, are routinely cleared by city officials. Tents are torn down, belongings discarded, and people are forced to relocate, often with nowhere to go. The justification is public safety, but the reality is displacement without resolution. The cycle repeats, pushing people further into the shadows, making them less visible, less acknowledged, less human in the eyes of society. Shelters, meant to provide refuge, often fail those who need them most. Many operate under strict entry requirements, identification, sobriety, proof of residency, barriers that exclude the most vulnerable. Reports of abuse, overcrowding, and unsanitary conditions have surfaced, revealing the failures of a system that claims to help. Some shelters turn people away simply because they have reached capacity, leaving them to fend for themselves on the streets. The racial disparities in homelessness are stark. Black residents make up only 9% of Los Angeles's population, yet they account for 31% of the homeless population. Systemic racism, economic inequality, and housing discrimination have contributed to this disproportionate crisis, making it clear that homelessness is not just an issue of poverty, it is an issue of injustice. Despite billions in spending, the crisis persists. California has spent $24 billion on homelessness over the past 5 years, yet the problem continues to grow. A federal investigation is underway to track $2 billion in missing homelessness funds. In 2024, Los Angeles failed to spend $513 million allocated for homelessness programs 3. Further highlighting the inefficiency of government intervention, many die nameless, forgotten, buried, without ceremony. Their stories vanish, just as they lived, unseen. This isn't just a crisis, it's a catastrophe hiding in plain sight. The question remains, will society continue to look away, or will it finally acknowledge the suffering that has been allowed to persist for far too long? What would truly end this crisis? Los Angeles has long been a city of contrasts, wealth and poverty, opportunity and despair, progress and neglect. The homelessness crisis has persisted despite billions of dollars in funding, and the failures of the system have become undeniable. The question is no longer whether homelessness can be solved, but whether society is willing to confront the truth and demand real change. Systemic reform. Laws must shift from punishment to rehabilitation. For decades, laws have criminalized homelessness rather than addressing its root causes. Sleeping in public spaces, loitering, and even asking for help have been met with fines, arrests, and forced removals. Instead of providing pathways to stability, the system has pushed people further into the shadows. Encampment sweeps are a prime example of this failure. City officials clear homeless camps under the guise of public safety, but in reality, they are simply displacing people without offering solutions. Tents are torn down, belongings discarded, and individuals are left with nowhere to go. The cycle repeats, ensuring that homelessness remains invisible rather than resolved. Reforming these laws means shifting from punishment to rehabilitation. Instead of criminalizing survival, policies must focus on providing access to housing, employment, and mental health services. Programs that offer job training, financial assistance, and transitional housing must be prioritized over punitive measures. Affordable housing. Stop treating housing as a privilege. It's a right. Los Angeles has spent billions on homelessness, yet the crisis continues to grow. The reason is simple: housing remains unaffordable for many. Rent prices have skyrocketed, and wages have failed to keep up. Even those who work full-time struggle to afford basic shelter. The city has attempted to address this issue through temporary housing programs, but these efforts have fallen short. Many shelters are overcrowded, unsafe, and poorly managed. Others impose strict entry requirements that exclude the most vulnerable. True change requires a commitment to permanent, affordable housing. This means investing in low-cost housing developments, enforcing rent control measures, and ensuring that housing assistance reaches those who need it most. Programs like Inside Safe, which repurpose underused motels for emergency housing, are a step in the right direction, but they must be expanded and properly managed. Mental health and addiction support. Address root causes, not just symptoms. Homelessness is not just about lacking a home. It is often tied to deeper struggles, including mental illness and addiction. Many individuals on the streets suffer from untreated psychiatric conditions, while others turn to drugs as a means of coping with trauma and despair. Los Angeles has seen a surge in fentanyl-related overdoses, with addiction gripping entire communities. Shelters and rehabilitation programs claim to offer solutions, but many fail to provide lasting support. High relapse rates, inadequate funding, and a lack of follow-up care have made recovery nearly impossible for many. Addressing this crisis requires comprehensive mental health and addiction services. This means expanding access to rehabilitation centers, ensuring that treatment is affordable, and integrating mental health care into homelessness prevention programs. Without these measures, the cycle of addiction and homelessness will continue. Public accountability. The world must see and act, not just scroll past another statistic. Despite billions in funding, homelessness in Los Angeles remains a catastrophe. A federal investigation is now underway to track $2 billion in missing homelessness funds, raising serious concerns about corruption and mismanagement. The public must demand transparency. Every dollar allocated to homelessness programs must be accounted for, and officials must be held responsible for failures. The Homelessness Fraud and Corruption Task Force has been established to investigate financial mismanagement, but real change will only come if the public refuses to accept empty promises. This documentary isn't just a story. It's a warning. Los Angeles is at a breaking point. The homelessness crisis is not just a failure of policy. It is a failure of humanity. This documentary forces the audience to acknowledge what they've ignored and ask themselves, will you keep looking away? Or will you demand change? Los Angeles, the city of dreams, has become a city of suffering for thousands who remain unseen and unheard. Beneath the towering skyscrapers and the endless promises of opportunity, the forgotten struggle to survive. The streets have become prisons, where hunger dictates every move and addiction tightens its grip on those who have nowhere else to turn. The system, built to protect, has instead abandoned them. Laws punish them for simply existing, shelters fail to offer safety, and billions meant to resolve the crisis disappear into bureaucratic black holes. Despite the wealth and resources at its disposal, Los Angeles has allowed this catastrophe to persist. The encampments grow, the overdoses rise, and society looks away. But this documentary is not just a story, it is a warning. The question is no longer whether homelessness can be solved, but whether anyone is willing to face the truth and demand change. How much longer will we ignore this crisis? How many more will die nameless, buried without recognition? The world must see them. The world must hear them. The world must act. Because if no one speaks for them, who will? Los Angeles, the city of dreams for some, a nightmare for thousands. Beneath the wealth, the glamour, and the endless promises of opportunity, a silent catastrophe unfolds. Thousands sleep on sidewalks, in makeshift tents, under highway overpasses, forgotten by a system designed to erase them. Hunger gnaws at their bodies. Addiction consumes their minds. The laws meant to protect them only punish them further. The billions allocated to fix this crisis vanish into bureaucratic black holes, leaving behind nothing but suffering. We've exposed the reality, the pain, the injustice, the failures. But exposure alone is not enough. This is not just a documentary. This is a warning. If you believe these stories need to be heard, if you refuse to let this crisis remain unseen, if you demand change, subscribe to Globpath Travel Documentary. Together, we will shed light on the truths the world ignores.